So last few class we have been discussing about secondary electron microscope. Last class we discussed about secondary electron, and last few class we have been discussing scanning electron microscope. So last class we discussed about two different mode of imaging. One is a secondary electron imaging, another one is a backscatter electron imaging. So now it is very clear that if you really would like to have a morphology based images, it's always useful to use secondary electron image, but contrast also. So in these cases we may use backscatter electron. Generally often we take same location both the images, so that we'll get a lot of useful information. So that's how we generally use both the imaging mode. And we also seen in the last class that why do we need to coat a material? So the coating is also important. Why do we need to coat, and what kind of coating that we use? Again, different type of coating we discussed in the last class, that if you have powder, then what kind of coating practice that we usually use, and if it is a bulk sample, what kind of coating technique that we employ. So in today's class, we will discuss more about different operating parameters. Already we discussed certain parameters like working distance, and as well as on the conversion angle. Those things we discussed, but we'll discuss a little bit more in this particular section also. In today's class, we'll discuss about different parameters like voltage, probe current, and especially the conversion angle and brightness, working distance, all those aspects we'll discuss. So what is optimum for a different sample? With a few examples, I'll try to explain it. Okay, so that actually covers the entire part of the scanning electron microscope in conventional means conventionally imaging mode that we use. Possibly, if required, I can introduce today's class about the X-ray diffraction. Not X-ray diffraction, means generation of X-rays. Because in EDS also we use generation of X-rays. We need X-rays to do the chemical analysis. So the fundamental concepts of generation of X-rays, whether they use X-ray in the scanning electron microscopy, whether use X-ray in the transmission electron microscopy, or use it in a X-ray diffraction, the concepts are more or less similar in terms of generation of X-rays. Okay, so now let me share the screen. Today I have shared one ebook which I find reasonably useful. Maybe few more books are there which I will also share. Maybe for each area like scanning electron microscope, there are certain resources are available which is useful for you to not only for this course, for practical purposes, you may require to use those resources. So that I will also share maybe after the class. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have seen that the role of acceleration voltage earlier, but still today's class we will see what is the role of acceleration voltage. There are two major parameters are there in a scanning electron microscopy. That not only scanning electron microscopy, this some of the concept whatever I'm discussing, it is applicable to transmission electron microscopy also. So one thing is the electron probe diameter. So this probe diameter, this is, let's say if this is your sample, okay, so this is actually the probe diameter. So as you have seen earlier, we have a crossover. Crossover is something that you have, the crossover size may be something like this. So you have, there will be a crossover. But from the crossover, then we have so many apertures. You have objective, so you have condenser aperture. So whatever this means, there are three points we should need to remember. One is actually the beam the source, from the electron gun, what is the um, uh, thickness, means whatever may be the beam diameter that you are getting, that is the one thing. Another thing is then it will diverge, then it is converging at the crossover. So this is a point. Maybe I can show you. If it is there, then I can show you. Yes, but it is not clear. It's fine. Okay. This should be small. We know that any scanning, any kind of a scanning process, you need to have one. You want to have the diameter of that source must be as small as possible. So the smaller the electron gun tip, then the smaller the beam diameter. But again, this beam diameter is going to increase somewhere here at the crossover. Okay, then it will go through a series of lenses, like you have a condenser aperture, then you have an objective aperture. So finally it will fall on this sample. While falling, you have all this angle. Let's say these are the based on the aperture where you keep, then you start getting this beam diameter differently. Again, the working distance also will be different. So that way, we will see that the beam diameter is actually important, because the beam diameter is one thing, and from there only you start getting the, let's say this is your sample, you start getting the interaction volume. So if beam diameter is larger, let's suppose if you say that your beam diameter is larger, then you start seeing that it will be interaction volume will be larger, and again that, let's say that you have this your profile. So in that case, the fixture, whatever the area that you are actually, let's say this area you want to scan it using this part, then you can go like this. But on the other hand, if you use this part, then you can go only like this. Okay, so that way you have three different places. One is actually that at the electron gun you have certain size. Then if it is a Gemini column, this one and this one will be like, if you have a Carl machine and this diameter and this diameters are same. Otherwise, in all other machines, this diameter is this stage, it is generally it is 10 times higher than the normal beam diameter. But again, once it comes to this sample surface, this is what we call electron probe diameter. That depends on many parameters, which we'll discuss in the next few slides. Okay, so this depends on electron, again it depends on electron probe current and electron probe convergence also, and again it depends on the accelerating voltage also. But again, all these elements individually also can have an impact. So suppose if increase the acceleration voltage, this probe diameter actually can have a different impact on the probe current as well as the diameter. So it's basically, it's a very complex interconnected parameter you should need to optimize for a particular sample. So that is what we are going to discuss with certain examples. We'll start. So we already know that the accelerating voltage plays a role, but we don't know how it is going to have an impact on the real microstructure. That we are going to see in the today's class. Okay, we'll start with this particular point. How does this acceleration voltage impacts that? This is the first one we'll discuss. Then we'll go to this. Electron probe. This one. Then this conversion. We'll go to last. Then we'll also discuss about the working distance, depth of field, which already we discussed in detail, but still we'll discuss a little bit more about this aspect also. So how to get an optimum value for a particular sample in a given microscopic condition that we will discuss. Okay, so these are the four important parameters. One is the electron probe diameter, electron probe current, electron probe convergence angle alpha p, and the beam accelerating voltage. Okay. Now, if you look at this particular image, when you change from 5 kV to 25 kV, what you see is there isn't been much difference. We are changing the kV. If you look at the image resolution, we don't see a much change. Forget about this part. Okay, this is a generalized statement. Now you compare these two image. We don't see much difference when you go from the 5 kV to 25 kV. So whatever may be the adjustment that you try to make, this some of the samples, it can be a maybe a different reason. Maybe that it may not be the optimum range. Maybe between a 5 kV to 25 kV the optimum. But you can see by changing the accelerating voltage, you don't see much difference in this sample. Here you can see that when you decrease, let's say that this is 10 kV, this is 3 kV, this is 1 kV. Now you compare the resolution, you can see that there is actually this, everything else is constant. Let's say that beam diameter, beam diameter is dependent on the voltage, but let's say that you just keep everything else, let's say working distance constant and the convergence angle as a constant. Only you change the variable as a voltage. What you can see here is as we decrease this kV, you can see the resolution is better here. You can see that the feature size are actually much better here. So then this is giving us an idea, okay, if we decrease the accelerating voltage, the resolution should improve. Okay, this is what the information that we are getting from this particular image. Now you take this image. So what we got here is by decreasing the acceleration voltage, information we got is resolution is improved. But here, this is actually the evaporated gold particles. You can see this is a 5 kV. When you increase to 25 kV, now acceleration voltage, what you see here is increased acceleration voltage, resolution is increasing. Why it is so? Any idea?
Sir, asking him an abrasion, sir.
Abrasion is a part. Abrasion is actually not only not mainly depends on the your acceleration voltage. Okay, abrasion may be happening for both the cases. Let's say that you see abrasion is depends on your convergence angle, your apertures, and you are having electromagnetic lenses. Those are actually the chromatic means it's if you don't have white light means the source is same. That means that chromatic aberration is same. Spherical aberration is coming mainly because of your electromagnetic from the lens nature from one end to another, and you have a variation that you are getting. That's fine. Astigmatism, we are correcting it. That is fine. You don't have much control. So coma, these are actually we can control it, but still you can see these two images. Please see here it is giving a information that acceleration voltage, if you decrease, it is better. And here what is happening is the acceleration voltage, if we increase, this is getting better. Then what could be the reason for that? We already discussed this point a little bit earlier, but now you have to connect it. So what can happen if we decrease the acceleration voltage? So let us come back to this point. Why this particular sample, this particular condition, that you see that when you decrease the acceleration voltage, you are getting the better resolution. Why? Any idea? So what can happen? Let's say, let us look at what happens to the, let's say, acceleration voltage. Let's say you go from 10 kV, you're going to have some beam diameter. Okay. You are going to have some interaction volume. Let's say that this is your beam diameter and this is your interaction volume. Okay, this is at 10 kV. Now if I decrease it to 3 kV, okay. So now what is happening is my beam diameter is actually coming down and the interaction volume is also decreasing. Okay, suppose if we decrease it further to 1 kV, okay, so what can happen? Okay, so now which one is better in terms of resolution? Which one is better in terms of resolution? Out of three, which one is better for resolution? Beam diameter, decrease in beam diameter and decrease in the interaction volume. Which one is better?
So smaller interaction volume.
Yeah, smaller interaction volume is better. Smaller interaction volume and the you have a smaller beam diameter. So that way, okay, this is the reason why you start actually seeing that difference when you decrease the. In general, it is always you should decrease the acceleration voltage as small as possible to get a better images. But now, what is happening here? So now what is happening here is I have 5 kV, I'm not seeing a good image, but the moment I increase to 25 kV, what is really happening is I'm getting a better image. So the reason possibly is that, let's say that you have 5 kV, so you have a smaller diameter, but you may be having very, very small interaction volume. So the number may not be sufficient. See, the number, let's say we were discussing about secondary electron, you need sufficient number to distinguish. Let's say you have 10 and 15. The difference is pretty difficult. So now if you have 100 and 150, so what is going to happen is the 50 is the difference. Basically what we want is the difference. It's very important. So when you have slightly a larger interaction volume is also, that's what I'm saying. There is nothing like this is a very good operating parameter for this particular microscope. You cannot say that it again depends on a sample. So this particular sample, when you have a lower kV value, you are not getting a sufficient interaction volume, insufficient secondary electron you are not getting. Means here, what you get is you don't get sufficient secondary electron to make a good image. But what you are doing is by increasing this value. So now what is happening here is this is actually this diameter is increasing, but the thing is the interaction volume is sufficient. Okay, sufficiently large. So you can actually make the difference. That is actually what is happening. So these two cases are, both the cases we are actually changing the acceleration voltage. In one case, it is actually going in other directions. If you look at earlier diagrams, number of secondary electron, you can see this is actually a trend. So there is an optimum value. That is where you start getting the more number of secondary electron. Okay, so more number of secondary electron, and it is useful information that we will be getting. So that's where you cannot define, okay, this is if I change the acceleration voltage, I should get a better image. It's not like that. See, by changing the, decreasing the acceleration voltage, also you can get a means generally by decreasing you will be getting, but some sample you may require to increase it also. So depending on the sample that you are actually observing in a microscope, you have to change all these parameters. Generally what happens is whenever the person who comes for insulation, they do all the insulation. So this is actually a standard. Evaporated gold particle is standard. Okay. He does he does all the calibration with the standard sample, which is actually at 25 kV you are getting the best resolution. But let us assume that you apply the same condition for this sample, 25 kV, you may not get a good image. So that's what I'm saying. So whenever you are going use microscope, you should need to know which is the optimum for that particular sample. There is nothing called optimum, but optimum for a microscope. Optimum is per sample. You have to vary all those parameters without damaging your sample, without overheating the sample, or without what do you call a lot of charging effort. Then you have to identify an optimum condition to get a best possible image. So this is one of the parameters that you should need to consider. Okay, now we look at this another thing. Now let's say that you keep the acceleration voltage as a constant. Now what we are doing is we are not changing the acceleration voltage. Now forget about this part. This is at a constant magnification. Magnification is constant. Your kV value is also constant. So now what we are doing is actually you can actually you can actually, without changing the acceleration voltage also, you can vary the diameter of the beam. We will discuss a little bit in the next slide. What is that we are doing is we are changing the diameter from 15 nanometer to 20 nanometer and then increasing that to 130 nanometer. So what we are seeing is this is actually a poor resolution. Look very good. It is very poor. So we are not saying any connection. So by increasing it, you are getting a good, very good contrast, a very good image that you are getting. But again, by increasing further, you are losing that. Resolution. So again, we are also changing the probe current. IP is a probe current. This is also increasing. Generally, whenever you increase this probe current, automatically the DP will increase. So that is what is happening here. So when you increase the probe current, we will see there is a relationship between a probe current and the diameter of the beam. Okay, so so there is nothing called optimum. Even if we keep a voltage as a constant, then you have to change this value because this dP is the output. dP is the output. The probe current is something that you have to vary. You can actually is input. So this is a probe current is something that you are going to increase or decrease because dP is not only depends on the probe current. There are few more other factors that we have, but it's general. What we do is actually we keep for a particular constant aperture and the particular microscope. By varying the probe current, you can actually optimize the image also. This parameter we don't touch this probe current, but this is also another thing that we should need to see. Basically, it's a probe current is gives you a signal to noise ratio. Okay, but again, that number doesn't make any sense. We will discuss a little bit later because if you take a thermionic emission, the probe current may be very high. On the other hand, if you look at a field emission gun, the probe current may be lower. That doesn't mean anything. Okay, that doesn't mean anything about the diameter of the beam diameter also, because for a particular microscopic condition only, we should actually discuss about the probe current and what kind of probe diameter it is actually giving to us. So this is also now similar to voltage. Then there is an optimum probe diameter that we should need to keep so that you can get a best possible image. Okay, now let us look at what is actually the probe current relation. So probe current dP is actually proportional to IP. That means when you increase this probe current, so this is actually a probe current that we will give. Basically, this is actually signal to noise. So let's say that this is your noise. Okay. So when you have a low probe current, let's say this is your image information. Let's say this is your image information. Okay. Now what is, let's say this is your noise. This is your signal. So probe current actually it's a signal to noise ratio. Okay. Suppose if you increase the probe current, let's say that you have a lower probe current. So by increasing it, what is going to happen is, let's say that you increase it to higher. So same one that you start getting the better signal to noise ratio. So that is one of the reason, though you are actually, we don't want to increase the beam diameter. DP we would like to have as low as possible. Because that's a very important, the beam diameter plays a very important role. Smaller the beam diameter is better is the image. But again, what is happening is when you increase this probe current, if you have lower, means when you keep on decreasing at certain level, the noise and the signal will actually start giving a problem. So that means you have to see, this is what is happening here. So at this point, you start seeing, when you keep on decreasing, let's say when you actually, let's say at IP 320A picoamps, so the probe diameter is high. But again, the signal to noise ratio is better. This is your signal and this is your noise, this is your signal is better. You can actually easily eliminate the signal and you can get eliminate the noise and you can get a signal. So once you come here, the probe diameter is decreasing. Let's say it is something like this. Then this is your noise and this is your signal. Okay, but still you can actually distinguish it. Further you decrease it. Let's say that you decrease the probe diameter further. So what is happening is your noise and the your signals are almost matching. So that is the reason that you are seeing this poor resolution here. So this is something that we should need to also keep in mind, that this particular parameter you can actually vary. This is actually input parameter. If you look at in this equation, IP is something which is actually important thing that we should need to, you can actually easily vary. Other than that is a beta. Beta is the brightness, beam brightness. You cannot vary too much, but by increasing acceleration voltage, you can actually vary the, this is actually increase in the brightness can be improved by accelerating voltage and actually having a bigger aperture. Means conversion angle should be more. Okay, so that's how it is, because see, when you have a bigger and bigger aperture, the more light can come. Okay, but again, this can actually induce aberrations also. So these are very complex phenomena. It all interconnected. You cannot actually keep on see. But again, if you look at a brightness point of view, the field emission guns, especially the Scott effect, has the highest brightness among the microscope. Maybe I hope I have that slide. Yeah, you can see that this is actually the brightness point of view. These are different. This is a thermionic gun. This is a field emission gun. This is a Scotty. This is actually a Scotty gun. I think the cold FEG is having the highest brightness. You can see here in this one, among the three, you can see this. This is actually your TE. This is your Scotty FEG. This is your cold FEG. So cold FEG is having the highest brightness, but if this may not actually visible here, but you can see here these two system, the field emission guns are going to have a very high brightness. Okay, so now you use that to 20 kV in all the mission, but you're not going to get a same brightness. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Let's say use 20 kV. This is going to have some brightness, this is going to have some other brightness, this is going to have some other brightness value. At a constant voltage, you start getting a different brightness level depending on the electron gun also. So that is the reason that I said you have to talk only in terms of a particular microscope. Okay, so this is actually the brightness. You can actually increase it by increasing voltage, but again the probe diameter is going to increase. We don't want to increase the probe diameter also. Okay, So this is another factor. The convergence angle we already discussed, and we will be discussing again on the again on this working distance also, because if you keep a aperture, bigger and bigger aperture, suppose you keep aperture somewhere here, let's say this is your aperture. If you have this kind of aperture, okay, this is your aperture, automatically you're going to see the beam will be coming like this. So what is going to happen is this angle is going to increase. This will be your angle, will increase. So, but again, increasing this one, it's going to have an impact on your aberrations also. Again, it is going to have an impact on the beam diameter. So we don't want that. Okay, so these are all complex phenomena. So two things you should need to remember. One is actually your voltage, another one is the probe current. So these two things actually you can actually vary, but again, you cannot actually vary too much. In a sense, you have to find an optimum value. It is nothing called low is better or high is better. You have to find out an optimum for a particular sample and a particular microstructure, particular machine. Okay, then another one is a brightness. Brightness is something that current versus area of the solid angle. So basically the probe current, so you reverse this equation, you get this. It is actually the higher the probe current, you start getting the higher brightness. But at the same time, it will go to the dP will be smaller. So these are the important point that you should need to remember. So 2 point now, voltage and the probe current. These are the parameters which you can control it. But again, when you increase probe current, you start getting a probe diameter increase, which we don't want. That's the reason we said probe size and probe current should be compromised. So these are two extremes. If you increase the probe current, then automatic probe diameter will increase. We don't want very high probe diameter also. But again, if you have a very low probe current, then you have a signal to noise ratio. That's what you can see here. When you increase the probe current, it will deteriorate the dissolution because you are increasing the dP value. Again, it will damage the sample more. Okay, because you are having more probe current. On the other hand, if you actually decrease the probe current, the high resolution is possible. But the thing is, you don't have a large signal to noise ratio. Say, this is actually 1 nanoamps. This is 0.1 nanoamps. This is actually 10 picoamps. So this is showing the best possible resolution. But this sample, it is showing the very good resolution, but you will get a grainy image. That's because of the signal to noise ratio. Okay, so these are the parameters, especially the 3 point now we discussed. One is actually the voltage, probe current, a little bit about the, then again we have discussed about the probe diameter. But there is an interconnected value is the brightness. Okay. So maybe in the next slide I can show you. Let's say that you have a 10 kilowatt is a constant voltage that you are using. Now you have a tungsten pin based filament and this is a LiV6 filament. Both are thermionic. Now you have a field emission pinhole and field emission. Forget about this one. Field emission gun. Now what is optimum? So now this is your probe current. So this is your probe diameter. So what we would like to have is we want to sit somewhere here we would like to work somewhere in this region. So in this region, but there is nothing called in this particular sample. In field emission you have, because we would like to increase the probe current because we want to increase, because by doing this, by increasing probe current, we are going to get high signal to noise ratio. Okay, we want that, but at the same time, we don't want to increase the probe diameter too much. Okay, for that you should work in this particular region. So once you work in this region, because what is happening is I can increase the probe current by increasing it. I'm getting a better to signal to noise ratio, but I'm not at the same time not increasing the probe diameter. So that is the reason the field emission gun has a lot of advantage. You have a brightness, you have a smaller beam diameter, you can increase the probe current, you can do work on low kV. That's the advantage because you have a lot of chance to play around with the probe current in the field emission gun. That's the reason you can actually, let's say that you decrease the kV. If you decrease the kV in the, let's say you go to 5 kV. So what can happen is this will come like this. So this will be, there may not be any line. You will get a absolutely a slope you will be getting, but this region will come down. If you have a 5 kV, this region may come down. It will be something like this, but still you have a range to work where you can actually change the probe current without actually increasing the probe diameter. This is some of the important aspect of controlling the experimental parameters in the scanning electron microscope to get a best possible image. Few more are there. If you have any questions in this part, you can ask me. Then I'll go to the next part also. You have any question in this particular region? Okay. So just let me consolidate. We can actually control. One is actually voltage, but again there is nothing called optimum voltage. That's the one thing. You should need to identify what is actually for that particular sample, what voltage that you wanted to do, that you have to identify. That's the one thing. Another thing is you don't have much control on the brightness. You can, by increasing the voltage, you can increase the brightness, but again, you have to identify an optimum voltage first for that particular sample. That means generally we don't look at brightness as one of the criteria for identifying the optimum parameter, because we have to get a best possible resolution first. So then only we start thinking about the brightness. Okay, that's the thing. So another thing is the probe diameter and the probe current. Probe current is actually the one which you can actually vary. You can actually vary probe current, especially in a field emission gun. You have a range, lot of range, where you can, without changing the probe diameter. We don't want to increase the probe diameter. Without increasing the probe diameter, you can actually increase the probe current. So when you increase the probe current, automatically the signal to noise ratio is increasing. So it is better to work at a higher probe current where you don't increase the probe diameter. Okay, so these are the important aspect in the beam parameters in the scanning electron microscope. So now we have discussed the brightness aspect for 3 different microscope. We've already discussed the beam source. Let's say that this is the beam source, means the beam diameter that we are talking about. Now you can see for a tungsten filament, it is around 15 to 20 micrometer. So then once you start with the 15 to 20 micrometer, crossover must be 10 times higher. That means you start getting 150 to 200 micrometer is your crossover size. So that in fact decides that, because this you can converge and diverge. Most probably, generally we converge this beam in the final diameter. So you stand minimum, you can get somewhere in the 15 to 20 micrometer is your electron source size. In the LAV6, you can actually decrease, means 2 orders you can decrease. On the other hand, you can see here, this is actually the crossover we have seen from 10 power 5, it is coming down to 15 in the field emission gun. So that way the electron beam source is also size also coming down. So that is the reason these microscopes are nowadays, it's very famous, because so these microscopes can give you very good resolution. You can have a very high brightness also. The energy spread we should need to be lower and lower, because we don't want to see the energy spread, which is actually the one EV values. EV values will be varying, but we don't want this changes. It should be very small. And yeah, the probe current is another thing that we discussed in the last slide. You can actually vary the probe current significantly. You can see that, you can see here, probe current you can get especially in the Scotty peg, you can get a very high probe current, because it has a combination of heating as well as the and the field emission current. So current stability is also lower. This actually comes from the stability region that we are talking about. So this particular region, the probe current, and this is actually your probe diameter dp, and this is your IP value. Okay, the current stability is better, and probe current is also better. Okay, lifetime wise, this is going to be this is going to have the best. Yeah, field emission current is going to have the best. Okay. So yeah, this is actually we don't want actually. Okay. Now another factor which we discussed earlier also, the convergence angle. Let's say this is your convergence angle alpha p that we discussed. If you have this convergence. Okay. So which one is better for depth of field or depth of focus? Which one is better?
Sir, second one.
Smaller
Second
angle.
one. Smaller alpha.
Smaller angle, because see, when you what is depth of field is something, let's say this is your imaging area, how far that you can actually move away from. Let's say this is your, let's say for higher alpha p, then you start getting the image not only on the focal let's say this is your focal length, you can have in other side also you can get a focal. Suppose if you have this convergence angle is very small, convergence angle is small. So then you start getting the larger and larger area. So this is alpha p is actually higher, then automatically depth of field is poor. Okay, but when you decrease the convergence angle, depth of field is going to be higher. That is what we discussed. So now you can say why this is actually the higher alpha convergence angle, and this is having the lowest convergence angle. So it's very clear to us that this sample is going to have the better depth of field, because this is actually the depth of field that we are talking about. So the working distance means not only the working distance, basically the depth of field, the region is actually increasing because of the convergence angle. Okay. The effect of aperture size. See how to do this one. That what is that we discussed. One is actually the working distance. Another thing is the aperture size. What is working distance? Now you have objective lens and your sample. So when you actually come closer and closer, this angle will increase. So when you go away from the way, so then you start seeing the angle is going to be lower. Okay. So same way, the aperture size. So if you have a bigger aperture, let's say that this is your aperture. Let's say that this is your aperture. When you actually increase the aperture size, let's say you increase to somewhere here. So then you start seeing the mean will come like this. So the alpha will be increasing. But again, if you have a huge aperture size, that can actually give you the smaller aperture size also can give you the problem. Means you may not have a sufficient light, and you have all the problems of brightness and other things are also a problem. So if you remove this, when you put so many aperture, then you are actually decreasing the brightness. That is also required. Okay. So optimum aperture angle that minimize the aberration on the final probe size. So when you have higher apertures, bigger aperture, then you start getting more amount of aberrations. Okay. We already know that final convergence angles control the depth of focus. Aperture determines the current and final probe. So that we already discussed in this equation that this is the this angle decides the diameter also. Okay, that's when you increase the conversion angle, what is going to happen? The depth of the diameter of the probe is the beam also going to change. So working distance we discussed more or less earlier. The working distance. This is what we're talking about. Working distance. Basically, the distance between a objective lens and the sample is something that we talk about working distance. So when you increase the working distance, what is happening is you start getting a better depth of field. But what is happening here? Now look at the beam diameter here. This is having some diameter. Let's say this is a region. If you zoom it, it is like this. So this is your diameter that you are talking about. Now you talk about here in this region, this is going to have huge beam diameter. You have something this. You have a huge beam diameter. So increasing working distance produces a large spot size of the specimen. This is what is, let's say you look at here, this is your spot size. This is your very small spot size. So very smart size you are getting. Okay. That is the reason you start seeing the degradation of the image resolution. That's what we have discussed earlier also. If you really want to get a very high resolution image, you should need to go very close. Okay, there are 2-3 reasons are there. If you go closer, then you start getting the better resolution. So again, it will more or less this. If you go closer, one of the reasons that we discussed, there is SC1 and SC2. Okay, which I like, and now I'll explain it. Some of them were asking that how to minimize the SC2. We don't want this SC2. How to get only SC1? How to get SC1 is basically you should need to go closer to the objective lens. Means the distance between objective lens and this one you should need to decrease. But in this case, you have a secondary electron can come from here. But in this case, bending secondary electron is a bit difficult. So that is the reason we have in-lens detector. Okay. So there are detectors. So let's say that this is actually your, this is actually, it will go in this in-lens, this is a normal detector. In this normal detector, you start getting a SC1 and SC2. Both can go to your normal secondary electron. Detector. Okay. But when you go sample closer and closer, this is where you're going to have your in-lens detector. Somewhere like a BSc detector, this is surrounding that you're going to have some in-lens detector. So in this case, this only SC1 that you start getting to this particular detector. So that way you can actually minimize the SC2, because SC2 will be converged, means it will be diverging in all the directions. So you start getting a better resolution image. But this can be done only when you come closer, because when you far away, SC1 also can actually go in this direction. Let's say suppose you put a sample somewhere here. SC1 also can actually escape. Most of the SC1 can escape. Then you don't get a proper number of secondary electron to actually measure it. So that's the in-lens detector that we are talking about. So this is actually the, so this is the role of conversion angles we were discussing. So this already we discussed about the depth of field. Okay, in-lens detector. It's fine. I think this is what all about conventional micro